it's getting the education out there for our safety. And when I started working in the trauma ICU, I really saw how real it was, how devastating it is, especially for the family members. So I think doing this story helps us educate our community, our schools, to better handle gun safety and these kinds of situations better. It's real. I felt it. And it's one of those things where when you start reading it, you're just ready to commit because it's special. And being a part of it, I'm just grateful that I can be an instrument to share this story.
I think it's important to tell these type of stories because it affects communities, families, loved ones. To go through something so, I hate to use the word horrifying, but horrifying. Us as a community, I think we've gotten too relaxed. I think that victims who have survived or who did not survive, they were innocent. Their stories need to be told. Their families need peace so they can move on. And what can we do to help our communities with gun violence? It's not leave the politics out of it. We need to come together as a community to heal, to educate, and to protect each other. I am honored. A friend of mine, Corliss Cooper, she is a retired police officer from the police department. She is a friend of mine, and when I was reading her story, I know her as my friend. Yes, she worked with the police department, but to see that other side of what she faced every night, being out in the street, what she had to absorb, what she witnessed, I tell you, it is an honor. It was an honor for me to be a part of this project, to tell her stories, to say her words. That is an honor for me, so I felt honored.
I think it's important for people to hear the after effects of what has happened to these families and what has happened to the parents who have children who have died from this. Why should a child have an AR-15? Why should they have a gun anyway? AR-15s are supposed to be ammunition for war. You don't need an AR-15. You don't need multiple shots. That's ridiculous. Makes no sense. Too many people are dying. When I was asked to do this, I said, oh wow, this is very important. They need to hear about the after effects of gun violence. And if more people talk about it, talk it up, maybe there could be something done about it. I can tell Louise Bell's story about her son.
I really think it's very interesting. I haven't been a part of a project where we're actually telling real stories of people who have actually dealt with some traumatic events like this. So I think it's really important for us as actors to be able to help portray these stories to gain awareness for things that sometimes we hear about gun violence. You know, you'll see it on social media and you're like, oh, that's sad. And then there's nothing else and nothing happens from that. So I think it's really important for us to really be able to tell these stories out to the audience so people can really see how it feels to really know what these people have gone through, and maybe they'll help to change something. I haven't dealt with gun violence directly, but I have two sons. And during the time when we start to see a lot of young black kids, males being killed, I was always worried, and I still am always worried today about their safety, about are they going to go someplace? Is someone going to look at them the wrong way? Is something going to happen? And I can just easily, just that quickly, be a mother who's lost a son to gun violence. So having two young boys particularly is one of the things that it's kind of close to me for this.
I couldn't think of like a more important time to tell these stories as like right now. Ooh, it's like incredibly emotional for me as a mom because it seems such an easy thing to regulate and to handle, but for some reason, I don't know, there's just not a lot of action. So this is where art comes in and the beauty of art and movement and like music, theater, storytelling, film. It's like kind of our thing in our back pocket that we have to be able to really make a change. Telling stories matter, and telling these stories matter more than anything. I was very excited to say yes to something like this because I am in a lot of committees trying to find movement in this one area, and now I'm excited because this is my talent. This is like where I can actually shine towards a goal, and hopefully it'll make a difference.
All right. Thank you all so much for staying. It's always wonderful to see so many people for a talkback. So my name is Blake Harris. I'm the artistic director of Obvious Dad, and we are really grateful to partner with Southern Exposure and Peggy. This is our first official partnership together since we merged. So yes, we are very excited. So thank you all for coming. So I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves, and then I'll talk a little bit about like what a talkback is, and then we'll just kick it off. So go ahead.
Well, first I'd like to thank the actors for a truly wonderful delivery and performance. So thank you. It was very moving. My name is Dr. Rick Derenfeld. I'm the department head of the criminal justice program at UTC and a gun violence researcher.
My name is Linda Graham. I'm a psychotherapist in private practice, but before private practice, I worked in corrections and crisis and a lot of situations where I was dealing with people who've experienced violence.
So for a talkback, you're welcome to ask anything about the production, but tonight we invited two experts in the field of gun violence. So we really encourage you to ask questions because we want this to be a productive conversation for our community. We're doing our job as artists when we start the conversation, right? So you can ask anything you want to our experts over here, but also we have the actors up here, we have the creative team over here. And so does anyone have a question? And I'll be tossing around the mic. So who wants to kick us off? Sure, thank you.
Hi, I just had a friend of mine who was shot last night it was the shooting off of 58. So he's the owner of a restaurant, Dos Amigas. And right next door, there was one of these sweepstakes things, the gambling places. And someone was robbing that facility or whatever it was. And he heard the gunshots and ran towards them. I think I don't have a question.
Well, from our part, I will say thank you for sharing. And I'm so sorry for the loss and the grief that you're experiencing now.
He's okay.
Grateful for that, but that is still something awful to experience for anyone that you care about or love. And thank you for having the courage to come here and share that.
Can you share with us a little bit about gun violence in Hamilton County? What's happening in our community?
Generally, sure. I would love to tell you that Hamilton County and Chattanooga are unique. We're not. We do know that gun violence is clustered around certain places and among certain individuals. So in addition to being a researcher, I'm also a collector of uncomfortable truths. Up to 70% of gun violence is clustered around 6 to 10% of the addresses in any major city. We've seen that bear out in every major study that we've ever conducted on gun violence. The vast majority of it is driven by, let's just call them what they are, children who are not old enough to legally possess or purchase a handgun in the first place. Again, Chattanooga is not unique there. I can tell you that we did enjoy a recent and sustained decline in gun violence that was driven in large part by data-driven, evidence-based practices that were adopted by the Chattanooga Police Department, in particular the Crime Gun Intelligence Center that was implemented in 2020. They really revolutionized their approach to gun crime within this community. A direct consequence of that was over a 3-year period, we saw a 40% decrease in gun violence in this city. That is not normal. And it's also important to note that that decrease occurred while other cities in Tennessee, Memphis, Knoxville were all increasing. But with any policy or practice you implement, it's going to have to be holistic, and it has to be nimble. It has to be able to be adjusted over time, because there is no sustained effort that you can use that's going to be consistently effective. Thankfully, you do have people within that agency that are highly committed to that goal. While this year appears to be a breakout, we are seeing an increase again. My experience with that agency is that their commitment to research, to evidence-based policy, we're going to make the adjustments that we need to see that downward trend continue again.
Great, thank you. Here you go, Marcus.
I really just want to ask a question. I was curious about that. I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of guys about the killing and the violence that's really going on in the city. Would you really call it a gang issue, or would you call it a lot of misguided young teens out here doing things that they really don't have any business doing?
No, that's a fantastic question. I can tell you, the department's given me pretty much open access to their gun violence records. And the gun violence issues we have here are almost exclusively driven by gang-involved youth. Now, while they may be gang-affiliated, they are misguided. For my part, I think if we're going to have a meaningful impact on gun crime, it's going to require community, communication, and education. And thankfully, with venues like this, we can really start to achieve all three of those things. But that's where we have to be willing to, again, listen to some of those uncomfortable facts, have open conversation, and then begin to address those things within our homes. There were some common themes that you guys heard tonight during these, from the actors when they were doing their storytelling, whether it's well, I can tell you that Chattanooga, again, is not unique in this respect. The vast majority of guns in the United States are legally purchased. However, the vast majority that are used in crimes are not legally obtained. In fact, fewer than 10% of the people that commit gun crime legally purchase their firearms. That means 90% of them came from illicit sources. So we're talking to people that are engaged in gun violence. In most cases, those are being obtained from street-level dealers. Those are fences. Those are drug dealers. Those are senior old head gang members that are socializing youths into that lifestyle and then using them to commit violence. In cases where they're being obtained from family members, and this extends to accidental shootings, those are firearms that have not been secured. So they're being pulled out of the homes, and I can tell you, even as a former police officer, 100% of the burglaries I ever worked where a firearm was stolen, it was always in the bedroom closet.
Great, thank you. So did you have a question?
I actually have a question. I want to share my story. I think for the lady that shared my story. I thank God that I'm still here. Like she said, when my son had got murdered, me and his wife did an arrangement. But I kid you not, I thought I was helping her do the arrangement for somebody else. I took off after the funeral. I took off and went down to my daughter's house. Came back home. Took the gun, put it at my head. Want to kill myself. It's like God and my son spoke to me that I had another purpose here. I still had purpose here. And, you know, I lost my son. I lost my son-in-law. I lost two step-grandsons. I lost a nephew. I just lost a nephew, last year? The Amazon shooting. That was my nephew. And you know, I had to go into the hospital in 2017. Was on the ventilator. When I woke up, the doctor told me, he said, Miss Bell, he said, we thought we had lost you. They put a trach in, they tried to put a trach in my throat. God didn't let them succeed. Because, you know, I wouldn't want no trach in my throat. I have had obstacles and I have had good things. But you know what? I turned my obstacles and make positive. November the 12th, I will be graduating for medical billing and coding. I got my associate degree and bachelor's degree. Grandson of my son's.
Thank you. Who plays Luis in the show? Is that Nancy? So I do want to ask a question for the actors. What's it like portraying someone else's voice? Some of you know the people who you're portraying. Chrissy and I know Gay Jeffers very well. And then Satidra is playing herself in the show, making her stage debut. But I want to ask a question just to the actors, if you briefly want to share what it's like playing someone. And then also I'd like to ask a question about trauma and healing to our guest, about, especially from, you know, what's your experience? They've worked with people in a different way, and you've worked with people in a very different way. But there's some collision there, so yeah.
For me, I played Captain Corliss Cooper, who is a
Sheila. I know you don't need it.
So I had the honor of playing Captain Corliss Cooper, a retired police officer with the police department. And it was so funny when Blake said, hey, I want you to look at this role and just tell me what you think. And when I got the script, I'm thinking, oh, I know her. She's a friend of mine. I get on the phone and say, do you know somebody's writing a play and your name is in? And she said, oh, yeah, it's fine, do it. So it was interesting to me to see her as a friend, someone that me and my husband, Sam, we hang out with Corliss and her family. We go to the games in Atlanta, Falcons. Woo! And to see that caring side. But then when I read her story, to hear her word, to see what she witnessed, to see what she saw on the street, I mean, I would have never known that. So it was when my husband can tell you, when I would go over the script and read, and it was so heavy, I had to put it down. I'm like, how could she leave her job as a police officer, come home, I guess, to everyday life, and not take that with you, but you do, and you have to deal with it in a certain way. So I don't know if there's any officers here, but being out on the street, seeing these shootings and deaths, how do you handle that? And anyway, thank you for your service. Thank you for protecting us. We appreciate it so much. Thank you.
So if you'd like to share a little bit, and then I can toss it maybe even to Satidra, because I would like to hear about your experience here. But let's hear about what it's like from your perspective working with folks.
One of the things that I've been involved with for about 20 years is helping out with critical incidents with law enforcement. And I think that's the side that people don't see, is what happens to police when they're involved in a shooting, and what happens to police when they're doing CPR on a child, or dealing with having to have a child die that through abuse. There's so many different things that I think law enforcement has to deal with day in and day out, and it does take a toll. And we were just talking about that earlier. My husband's retired law enforcement. He's been retired 15 years, but it took him 10 years to retire and stop being that police in his head, stop being a cop. But the thing is, there's no winners here. Nobody wins, and everybody that's involved, the community, the parents, the friends, the brothers, the sisters, the law enforcement, the ER doctors, everybody hurts, and I think that's really the tragedy of it.
Thank you. Satidra, would you like to say a word or two just about your experience here? If not, that's totally fine. I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, man. So, thank y'all all for coming. This cast, the team that put this together, and then my freak swim is Olga, my sweet friend, Miss Olga, and Peggy, and now Aaron. Y'all, this is crazy. I didn't have long to practice, and I battled every day because I have to now care for some grandkids, and they all over the place. But the one thing that I would say about this experience is enlightening. And the reason why I'm going to continue is because stories need to be shared. The reason why stories need to be shared is because cities, local government needs to change policies. They need to facilitate care for people that are suffering. And sometimes from the cases that I know, it's about revenge. Somebody killed my brother, now I gotta go back and do something to their family. And when my son Jordan was murdered in this city, I didn't live here. I had to drive 2 hours away, and it felt like 45 minutes. Wasn't even a state trooper on the road. I was like, dang, I got here fast. But you gotta get there. And it's not the call that anybody want to get. I'm just thankful that it came from my family and not a medical facilitator or the police officer, because I don't know if I would have been able to make it. Then when I got the call about Josh, oh, our Lord have mercy, I beat the floor to death. I mean, I ain't putting no holes or nothing in there, but I did. I couldn't get up off the floor, y'all. Mentally, I was just broke. Still right now today, I haven't been to a therapist, but my therapy is being in a related field that other people have went through the same stuff. Because I don't know about what the city offers me here or in Atlanta, because, once you bury somebody, about 2 weeks later, if not a month later, they're gone about their business. So if you seek out help, that's on you. They don't follow up. That's what we gotta change. Your city is hurting. And I'm one of them 4 times over. So I just implore everybody, love on your family. If you can possibly advise, counsel, pour into a family, pour into somebody that you see that's on the wrong track. Pour into nonprofit organizations that's out here trying to help the youth, because they're hurting and they are lost. They're without their fathers. They're without guidance. They're without God. And that's what's held me on for so long. It's my belief system.
Thank you. So we'll do one more question, and we'll do two more questions, and then we can always continue the conversation. We have a lobby, and also stay engaged with the theater companies. We want to grow this work, as we said. This is just the first iteration. This is a workshop production. It's an idea, but we're already looking at revisions and maybe even a touring production, something that can keep this conversation going. So if you'd like information about that, visit our website or talk to us. But we'll close out with two more questions. So let's get yours first.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Missy Crutchfield. I'm a candidate for state senate. I'm not here to talk about my candidacy. I'm a good friend of Satidra's. I remember when I worked for Mayor Littlefield, sitting down with Pastor Ternay Jordan Sr. and hearing about what had happened to his son and being moved by that. My life has been touched by drug and gun violence. I've seen it. We've all, we're all 1 degree or less to this. But right now, we have an opportunity. This is an election year. We have an opportunity to vote for candidates that are going to fight for sensible gun laws. We have an opportunity to vote for candidates that are going to fight for public education. And we have an opportunity to fight for candidates who are going to work for women's rights and women's reproductive rights. So I'm just asking you to please vote, do your research. We need fighters up there. We can turn Tennessee around. Tennessee is 50th in the country in voter turnout. We're 50th. And we have until October 7th to register new voters. They can download an app called Vote TN, Go Vote TN. It's that easy. We can change things together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. And before I hand this to you, I will say there's a reception out here when you're done, or when we're done here. So we can continue to talk out there, but there are cookies out there.
Thank you. I wanted to say that Vivian's story really resonated with me. The lady in the clogs with the boho bag in the trunk. As a teacher, I lost my mother on the 16th. When my husband was asked to step in and do this play, we were in the throes of her transitioning. And I had such anxiety coming out tonight because this is my first time being outside since it happened. I literally have took up writing, actually, and I have been maybe writing in first person a little bit. But my last post on Facebook was, how does one integrate back into society after your life has been on pause? And simultaneously, the whole world is still spinning. And it was a lot to come here. I didn't really know what the play was even about. But it helped a lot. I have an inner grief counseling, and I think death, grief is a wild ride, right? It literally strips you of everything, and I feel I'm at my weakest right now, even physically. But thank you, because you gave voice to the words that may have been trapped in me a little bit. And this was a safe space, so thank you.
Thank you. Would you maybe mind sharing about maybe how just we re-enter the world from grief, and maybe some words about even tonight?
Yeah, I think grief and trauma are often hand in hand, but they're really different things. Trauma can become the past, but I don't think grief ever ends. I think people just get used to the weight, honestly. And that's the process I think everybody's been through at some time in their life. Everybody's lost somebody or a pet even, or maybe something that was important to you. So as we move out of this space into that space, I think maybe being mindful of the people that you've heard grieving in here tonight that are in that experience right now, and also maybe reflect on some of your own experiences and just bring that gentleness and that kindness and from your heart into the space.
Thank you all so much. Yes.